Council Action. I'm Russell Inman, and joining us tonight from Ward 1 is Councilman Tim Lee. Tim, how are you this evening?
Very well, thank you.
Good, great. Well, we had a pretty nice agenda, I'd say, this evening. We had a large part hearing from citizens. We had a kind of a sea of orange in the audience. Those who are out just for the breed-specific legislation, again, kind of coming and voicing their encouragement for the city of Florissant to relook at that ban. One, I've failed to remember which councilman brought it up, but it was kind of a good mention just to take their energy, focus it back on the city's residents, and have them look at getting a petition and bring it up for vote.
Let me just first say that the group has been coming for a number of weeks, months now, and they're polite and courteous, and I always try to be responsive to them as well, even though we may not agree on the issues. And tonight was the same way. They had several speakers that spoke on different things instead of the same, hour of just everybody saying the same thing. And
I've seen that from other groups.
Yeah, they're a good group. But Councilman Henke had gotten an email from the group. They're considering doing some surveys, and his suggestion was that if they're wanting to do this, go get the signatures for an initiative or a referendum petition, and if they think that's something that they would do, they could put it on a ballot and let the voters decide that. So I can't speak for the rest of the council, but obviously after all these months, no one in the council has made any movement to repeal it as of right now, and a number of speakers tonight. There was a number of letters that were on our emails that came in, and someone noted that tonight they had checked the number of emails that had come through over the years, and they are on an email campaign, and they're encouraging their people to send in emails, and I don't know that the council considers that a good survey of the,
Sure.
It's an ordinance that's been on the books for over 10 years, about 11 years, and I talk to residents on the phone, I talk to them in grocery stores, I talk to them, all around, and there's not a push to keep it because it's something that's already been there and it's already there. So I mean, and they're being very tenacious and very responsive, and I admire their tenacity to do that. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay. See him again in
We will see him again the next meeting. Yes, sir.
The public hearing tonight was a request to amend a zoning code. It's a clarification of a special use permit for educational development centers in a B3 zoning. Let's talk about this. We had
a lot of discussion, wasn't there?
Yeah. Come up and talk.
Yeah. We passed an ordinance several years ago that said we didn't want to have daycare centers in strip malls. We had numerous problems, and we felt that it created health and safety issues with having, it's just not an appropriate place to have that. And what we determined is that we wanted to, or the recommendation is that we change our definitions to better define what we're talking about as far as being in those locations. And so it was an educational development center. So this basically was just an attempt to better define what an educational development center is. And that way they'll all be treated the same way. There were some questions about what about a dancing school or a music, or, a music store that does lessons, and I think what we heard was that the intent's not to have anything to do with that, but because they're going to be either allowed as a permitted use or a special use. The only ones that came up that created some issues were like tutoring, learning improvement, and test centers and things, Sylvan Learning Centers and things like that, which. And it gave me something to think about. We may take those three things out of this, so to make sure that we're not creating another problem that we created by doing this in the first place. So just kind of a clerical thing, really, just to clean it up and make sure we all know what we're talking about when we say what should be allowed in a strip mall shopping center and what shouldn't. And I think it kind of came up at the end is that our intent is not to create a problem. It's to create the safety for the kids that are, parents are dropping kids off and playgrounds that are in the middle of a parking lot and things like that, and that was the intent of this, so.
Which you normally see with a preschool, but you wouldn't see with a tutoring center.
Kind of, you wouldn't see it like, yeah, that's exactly correct. If you're coming in to do your hour of tutoring or whatever, you're probably not going to have that.
You're there with a math book or a science book.
Correct, as opposed to 20 kids getting dropped off for the after school and things like that. So we may look at making that change before we.
It's gonna be a hard line to draw to kind of figure out where that gray area is.
It is, but again, we're looking at the health and safety of the kids. That's really what we're interested in. So we don't want them playing in the middle of a parking lot. We don't want parents dropping them off and running back and forth, and that's what created the problems that we passed the ordinance for a couple of years ago. So.
And do we have any of these that exist in Florissant today?
There are currently some that will come under that guideline because they're not daycare centers, and there were, I think, in the planning and zoning minutes, there were about 5 or 6 existing places that would basically grandfather in, and that was a question I asked, is that if they're already operating here, they're going to grandfather in. So this wouldn't affect them. Now, if they came back and said, we want to expand and enlarge it, or we wanted to move to another location, then they would be affected by it. But anyone that's currently operated would not be affected at all. So,
if they're currently operating in that facility and they sell to another center doing similar things, would that be able to transfer? Probably.
The ones that I remember, they're just renting a space.
Okay.
They're renting a space in a strip mall. If it's a standalone, I think that came up as well, that schools are, and I never understood this, but schools are in R4 residential zoning anyway. All the schools are in that zoning. So, but these are strip malls. These are just spaces that are being rented. I don't think there is any standalone brick. And by the way, if they were a standalone brick and mortar, that wouldn't cover them because they're not in a strip mall.
Not in a strip mall.
So they would be permitted.
Okay.
All right.
Old business, starting off with a motion to reconsider a vote.
Right.
This was for Bill 9212.
Got a little contentious in there.
Here. Yeah.
To refresh everybody's memory, there's a vacant Team One Auto Body, a vacant building and lot that had been there for a number of years that were vacant. And a couple meetings ago, they came to us and they said they wanted to open a used car lot in the front of that facility. And their intent was that they want to eventually sell that property, which has been vacant for a lot of years. And Mr. Schmidt and a couple other people questioned some of the things that went on, and one of the things we noticed, there wasn't a landscaping plan. And our ordinance requires that there's a landscaping plan that goes along with the request to have something like this. So they came back at our last meeting and they presented a landscaping plan. They developed it, they presented it to us, they gave it to us. Satisfied the council. We made the landscaping plan part of the bill, and we passed the bill and gave them their permission to put in their car lot. And we received a letter from their attorney saying that basically they don't know that they want to do what's required that they said they were going to do, and they didn't want to spend the money. And this is in Councilman Hankey's ward. Well, Councilman Hankey was on vacation at the meeting, so a procedural move would have been to do a motion to reconsider the vote, but it has to be made by someone that voted on the winning side of the argument. So had it been a 5-2 vote, whoever prevailed, one of those 5 would have to make the motion to reconsider. Then it opens it back up again, and then what Mr. Hankey was going to do is continue it until the next meeting, if that would have passed, and give them an opportunity to come in and plead their case again and say, we changed our mind, we don't want to do their landscaping plan, and
present a new plan?
Presumably. He said, let's give him an opportunity to be heard, and I was actually not surprised that the majority of the council was not interested in doing that. And several of us spoke, including myself, about if they would have wanted to ask for exceptions during the time and things like that, but they brought us their plan, and we approved their plan. Now they're having second thoughts. So they say their intent is to sell the building. They want to sell it, and I probably overstepped my bounds a little bit by saying, if you really want to sell it, you look at the price because, you know, it's a, you know, I use the example, if I say I really, really want to sell my house in Florissant, my residential house, someone asks 800,000 for it. I'm not really wanting to sell it very bad, am I? So, and that's one of the things that I look at. If their intent is truly to sell it, then they should market that property and make it attractive to where somebody would want to buy it. So, we basically just decided we weren't going to reconsider that. So, what we passed is on the it's a bill now, and it's an ordinance, and it's done. So,
And it seems that this may be a case where the landscaping, the cost for this landscaping was just a bit more than they thought it would be, and for them trying to sell it, it's no longer viable.
that's a possibility. I mean, they're, you know, but it's their plan.
It's their plan.
Right.
It wasn't your
They
plan.
know what the requirement is, and you know, and this came up before several weeks ago. It came up, you know, would we, because they didn't have a landscaping plan, and the question was asked is that, you know, what do you think about that? And my response was, why would we treat them any differently than anybody else? Even if they say, well, it's because we're wanting to sell it anyway. We're just, you know, why would we treat you any different than any other business that we're coming in? And the fact that they're saying, well, we want to sell it, so it might only be a year, it might only be 2 years, well, it could be 10 years, you know, it could be, yeah.
Try to sell it for 3 times market value, it might
And
be
it may
another
never
12.
sell, so, I mean, yeah, so, you know, we treated them the same way we treated any other business, and the council decided they didn't want to open it back up and consider it a second time, so.
Okay. So if they want to do any new changes, they're going to have to start over with P&Z.
Pretty much.
Okay. Second readings tonight, ordinance authorizing an appropriation of $45,000. It's from the General Revenue Fund. Telephone to cover additional cost for telephones.
Yeah, that was actually continued from another meeting. There were some changes that were made in the telephone. Used to come under the police department, they moved to the IT department, and there was an audit that was done last year before the budget was submitted to try to find some areas where they could have savings in the phone system, and the budget was submitted, and it was a very, very aggressive budget. The amount they asked for was significantly lower than the year before, and
They'd found considerable savings in that.
well, obviously they didn't find considerable savings, but and I think they realized that. And there may have been also a problem. May have also been a problem with failure to look at some leased equipment that we lease, and the lease comes due, and we pay the lease on that equipment. And so it was a late mid-year appropriation just to make sure that our phones don't get turned off before the year's over with.
But then the residents can't call you.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? They have my home phone number, so.
New business. There was a request to approve a beer and wine package liquor license for Colf LLC.
Yep.
They do business as the Exxon. It's a property located on New Halls Ferry Road.
Right, just a new owner of the same place.
We had a request to approve a transfer of a special use permit for Trail Winds LLC to Champion Restaurants LLC. It's operation of a restaurant, sports bar, and arcade located at 2109 Charbonnier Road. We know that location as the old Devers.
We do.
Yeah.
And that is going to be Irma Jeans.
Irma Jeans.
That's going to be the name of the new place, and kind of excited about getting it. I understand they signed a 10-year lease, so they're wanting to be here, and it's going to be a family-friendly kind of like Devers was.
Devers.
Yeah, kind of a family-friendly. And you may or may not remember this, but when Copperoo's first opened in that location, and we're all excited, Copperoo's, I think, planned on being more of a bar than a grill, and it turned out that they became more of a grill than a bar, and so they had to do a lot of changes to accommodate the family atmosphere and the things that they have, and it's a great venue. We were sad to see Devers Glow, and we're glad to see Irma Jeans coming in now. So
that's great. Request to approve a full liquor by the drink license for a Champion restaurant. Again, that goes right along there with Irma Jeans.
Got it.
So bills for first reading, the zoning code for clarification of a special use for the educational development centers. That just had one reading tonight.
Right.
We had a lot of we had a lot of bills for first reading that actually went through with 3 readings tonight. Ordinance to approve the transfer of the special use permit for Trailwinds Champion Restaurants. That passed in 3 votes tonight.
Yeah, we wanted to move that along and give them the opportunity to get open as soon as possible. So it was basically that place had been used for a bar and grill for all those years, and and we didn't feel that was something controversial, and we wanted to give them the opportunity to move forward quickly, so.
Another one that passed with 3 votes tonight was the mayor of the city of Florissant entering into a contract with St. Louis County to provide for the city's participation in a multi-jurisdictional drug task force.
Yeah, and it's something we've done in the past before, but it's an opportunity for us to participate with a lot of municipalities in St. Louis County. And the way I explain it is this: is that everybody pools their resources and their talent, and you may have a problem here that we're going to investigate in Florissant, and we may draw someone who is stationed down in Fenton. That's assigned to this task force. They'll come up here and do the investigation so that nobody here is going to recognize who they are. Our officer may be down in Lee May area working a case because, again, there's that cooperation. But we also get the use of that entire organization if we do have a problem. And you know, drugs are in our society, and they're not limited to within our borders. So if an investigation takes us outside of the city limit, or we're tracking something that's coming in or going out, it gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to do that. And I think we felt that was something we wanted to be part of. And then it also came up as well is that as a participant in this, they have a lot of asset forfeitures, and we then get part of that asset forfeiture money that comes back to help reimburse what we have in it. And we basically have in it, it was a question about that, it's one officer, so we're providing an officer and his benefits and a car to be able to get around in. But I think it's a good investment for our police department. So
I know the question came up, well, how much is that officer? But we don't even know which officer it is, and
we don't even know who it is.
Every officer is a different salary.
Right,
so.
you know.
Another item that passed in 3 tonight was a budget item for the golf course, $4,000 from gasoline to equipment repairs, and just kind of shoring up the golf course.
It's a transfer of funds. We had some problems early on at the golf course this year with the maintenance person ended up in extended illness and ended up not coming back, and so we had some issues we were trying to deal with. And the golf course is a contentious issue with a lot of people, and we have a new management team there now. It's come under the Parks Department, Mr. Todd Schmidt, and they're making lots and lots of changes, and so we allowed them to do that because we want to make sure that we give them every opportunity to be successful. You may recall we eliminated 3 full-time positions in last year's budget for that golf course, and so we're asking these people to do a lot with a lot less. So, and right now it looks like we're on target we're still going to operate at a loss, but every municipal golf course operates at a loss. It's an amenity that we provide for our residents. Swimming pools don't make money, tennis courts don't make money, and golf courses don't either. So, kind of a routine matter, but we wanted to give them the opportunity to make sure that everything is taken care of and they can get through the end of the year. So.
Okay. There's appropriation of $1,000 from the General Revenue Fund. This is for professional services for legal services regarding the SB 5 appeal.
Yeah, Senate Bill 5 was passed by our legislature, and it has to do with, I'm going to say, infringing upon the rights of municipal police departments. One of the things that it did is it said that your total revenue that you bring in can't be from traffic stops and things can't be, and what the bill says is that St. Louis County can only get this much where everybody else in the state can get a different amount. But there's lots of other things in Senate Bill 5 that dealt with making rules and regulations over police departments, and that was challenged in court. The St. Louis County Municipal League and I think about 50 cities were all part of that action, and actually they won the court battle, and the state has chosen to appeal it. So now we're into the appeals process, and so we are part of the St. Louis County Municipal League, and this will affect us in the future as well, and it affects the smaller municipalities much greater. But we made a token contribution of $1,000 into that fund to help handle the appeal. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. So.
And there's ordinance 50 or 520, 255, the removal of unlawful signs in the public right-of-way for the city property by deleting it in its entirety and replacing it.
Yeah, the new line just basically said if you have an illegal sign in the right-of-way, we can, not only can we fine you, but we can take it out.
Okay.
And that's, we actually were taking them out and then realized that there was nothing in our ordinance that said we could take it out. So now we'll be able to remove it. And we still could fine you if we wanted to, so.
Well, you got to make your money back from sending somebody out to remove it.
Whatever, yeah.
Let's talk about council announcements. What's going on in the city of Florissant? I know we've got a Veterans Parade coming up in November. It's a couple months out, but what else
Veterans
is going
Parade,
on?
9/11 ceremony is going to be done
yes.
next Sunday at VFW. So Fall Festival, Sunday, October 9th. That's coming very quickly, and that's my favorite thing in the city of Florissant. I like it better than Valley of the Flowers. And
it's a good contender.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. That's coming up in October on October 9th, and we're looking for a good turnout for that as well. So.
Another shout out for Neighborhood Watch. The council is always looking for your involvement with your neighborhood to watch the community. Nobody knows your community better than you do.
A couple of Ward 1 things. For anybody that's watching out there, I've gotten more phone calls and emails asking what's going in at the old firehouse on Humes and Shackleford.
They finally have a sign up.
Tore that down. Well, and people didn't realize this, but that's not in the city of Florissant. That's actually unincorporated St. Louis County. But it's going to be a Family Dollar store. And people that questioned why they were building it the way they would, it would not meet our building codes. They're not building it the way we would require them to build it, but it is unincorporated, and it will be a Family Dollar store. So it's strange because that old firehouse has been there for over 50 years that I've been here. So it looks strange going by that intersection now and seeing it gone in the new business there. So
yeah, my way home tonight was the first time I had seen the Family Dollar sign posted on it.
Another thing going on is that the people may remember the Shackleford improvement plan that was passed years ago. It's a St. Louis County plan. It's going to be from Charbonnier to Humes. And that project's so far behind schedule, but they tell us that they're going to start moving some of the utility lines. Laclede Gas has been there for a couple months, but it hasn't really disrupted traffic, but now they're going to start disrupting traffic. And this is going to create problems for probably a year once they get that started, and gosh only knows when they're finally going to get it started, but they're going to start moving some utility poles and things probably this week or next.
Okay.
So other than that, been a quiet summer. It's hard to believe it's fall already, isn't it?
It is, especially with heat indexes over 100 today.
It's true.
We've got that, I think, again, maybe
That's
tomorrow.
why I'm not wearing a jacket today.
You were smart.
I was, yeah. I decided I was going to go casual.
I didn't get the memo.
Casual for today's meeting, yeah. Okay.
Well, Tim, thanks for going through the agenda. I appreciate it. I know the residents of Florissant, as they watch the show, appreciate the easy synopsis I think this is, and their understanding of what the council is doing to further the city along. I'm Russell Inman. You've been watching Council Action. Thank you. We'll see you next time.